Wiltfong from 247 is the crystal ball person, and he's so someone put his record of his actual crystal ball picks. It's like 91%.
Yeah.
And they have him crystal ball to Oregon. So it sounds like he's going to be gone. So with that, does that
Tough.
change your tune at all with CJ Carr? Like, does that, you know what I mean? Because before we looked at it like, okay, well, if they're just going to prioritize Dante and get him, then all is
Oh, I
forgiven.
didn't do that. I didn't do that. That was you that did that. I was upset that CJ was a lost opportunity, and just because once again local kids, and or kid, even if it's just not local kids that you have your foot in the door, it appears you're not able to close. So I'll take the local angle out of it. It's just the fact that these are quote unquote 5-star caliber quarterbacks that you have your foot in the door. You actually have a legitimate chance to land them. At least it appears you're not able to close the deal. And that's what's hurtful, man. And it's not just quarterback. I mean, this upcoming Harbaugh's recruiting this past year is not looking too good. I think they're 13th in the Big Ten or something like that for this upcoming class. So I mean, like for a year in which you just came from like winning the Big Ten and not seemingly being able to ride that momentum to having a really good, successful recruiting class going forward, it is concerning. And I don't know if it's due to Michigan's lack of NIL options, or is it just just not doing a good job, selling the right type of recruiting pitch to these kids. I don't know what it is, but it is cause for concern. Because even though you can stay in a moment, and I believe this year Michigan will have a very good team. But you have to also consider the future as well, because it'll be here very, very quickly, and there will be Michigan football after J.J. McCarthy and Cade McNamara. And they have to make sure that they are planning for that. And it could be as soon as next year. We don't know what can happen. What if JJ has another setback with his arm? You just never know. And then what if Cade decides to leave? You just never know. What if JJ starts midway through the year, takes over for Cade, ends up hurting his arm, but Cade's ticked off, and he still leaves? Now you have no quarterback, right? So like I'm just saying, I know that's a hell of a scenario I'm painting, but it can happen. And that's why it's always important to continue to restock that stable, as much as you can. So it's definitely not the end of the world if Dante Moore leaves and goes to Oregon and CJ going to Notre Dame, but it's definitely cause for concern for sure.
Yeah, to me, I think it would have been that can soften the blow with CJ if you were able to get Dante Moore. But to lose out on both of those guys, to me that changes things for me. If I mean, I think Billy Tuesday just put that 247 has him 100% crystal ball to Oregon. Like if that's the case, like that's just and here's the difficult part. And I mentioned it before you got on.
He's gonna look sweet. He's gonna
He'll
look
look
real
good.
sweet.
He'll look
Yeah,
good.
he'll look
Oh
he'll
yeah.
look good. I
But
guarantee you that.
see,
Look, man. Look, real quick. And just let me say this. I will say this. If Oregon was like a powerhouse type of program, they would be perfect. I mean, you look sweet and you win a lot of games. I mean, like your swag is crazy. I'm not gonna lie. Like that kid, he's gonna probably be all spatted out. I can't wait. He's gonna look sweet. That's all I'm gonna say. Go ahead.
so I had said before you hopped on that part of the difficult part when you are a high profile coach at a high profile school is basically every situation that you go through, everything that you do. If it doesn't turn out well, it's always going to be looked back on as a bad decision. So if you miss out on CJ Carr, you miss out on Dante Moore. I think even though you have JJ right now, I would still say some of the it's going to bring back up questions of Harbaugh recruiting the quarterbacks, like him supposedly being the quarterback whisperer. And
Can we
yes, he's
not?
got JJ.
Can we just get rid of that? Just stop.
I mean
Let's not
but
talk about that.
that's
I'm not being negative. I'm not being negative. I'm just saying let's squash that term. Clearly, that's not the case. Okay, look, this year be damned. I mean that's just not a real thing. That turned out being not something that's accurate about him. So he's still a good coach, but
Mhm.
this whole quarterback whisper thing, I actually cringe when I hear it now. I really do. So but continue.
Well, and I think it's going like just questions are going to come back up because to me it doesn't seem like, and maybe I'm off on JJ his path to Michigan. Doesn't seem like him coming to Michigan had that much to do with Jim Harbaugh. It seemed like he just loved Michigan, and I don't know if it was just culture, Block M, whatever the case, the history, but he seemed to just love Michigan. It didn't seem like it was like I just want to play for Jim Harbaugh. It seemed like
Right.
it seemed that way. So even in the win that you got, it almost, you know what I mean. It's not as much of a win because it seemed like he came just because it was Michigan. Like it almost had nothing to do with you. So that's kind of difficult.
Yeah, yeah. I look, I mean, me and you both said that I don't see how uh, Jim Harbaugh is going to impress you in a one-on-one conversation just based on his conversation style. Um, but it's one of those things where you know the University of Michigan has the brand recognition where they're going to get their foot in the door. Most kids have heard about it, have seen it somewhere, so that helps a lot. So as long as your program is recognizable and now you're starting to win and be relevant in the college football playoff race and conference championship race, then you have a good chance of landing these kids. You're not going to get the best of the best. I mean, that's unfortunately reserved for like the top four. Normally, that's reserved for Alabama. That's reserved for at one point in time for a couple of years Clemson. It's reserved for Georgia. It's reserved for now maybe reserved for Lincoln Riley and USC. We'll see. But Michigan has to make their. I think to be successful, you know, they need to finish every year. I think in top 10 of recruiting. I don't think it's fair to expect top five. I think finishing 7 or 8 is realistic. Or maybe eight, or maybe nine, 10 or 9 or 10 is realistic. Um, and maybe you can get maybe 1 or 2 5-star kids, but make your hay with a good mix of 4 or 3-star kids. And like I said before, I believe a strength of this program for years has been identifying talent and helping kids play above their quote unquote recruiting rankings. So I think that's where they can find their niche and still be very successful. But I definitely don't believe you can be finishing 15th or below. I think you need to stay in that top 10, lower top 10 range, to be competitive in terms of you know winning the Big Ten and getting to the CFP.
Yeah, and it just the difficult part is Mark has talked about it as well with the recruiting and how big of a gap there is from number three, to number nine is a much bigger gap than we really realize. Like that's a huge talent gap, and really you need to be consistent if you want to consistently be in that CFP winning the Big Ten. You realistically you need to be in that top six consistently every year. You need to
I
be
get
there.
that. I'm just trying to be realistic at this point.
Hmm.
Like, and that's why I think you asked me this, Des, after the national title game, maybe a couple episodes, not national title, but after Michigan was eliminated by Georgia, maybe an episode after that or a couple episodes after that. What does Michigan have to do to get to that level? You remember you posed that question, and I think I said at the time I don't think there's anything they can do. I don't know if it's realistic, for us to ever win a national title. I would love for us to. I definitely am not quitting and saying that we should stop trying. Absolutely. And that's why I'm on. I don't let this program off the hook because I will continue to push them to go forward. But that doesn't mean that I have some unrealistic expectation or knowledge of where they are. And yeah, you're just not going to be able to win at that level, like you said, unless you're in the top five, top six in recruiting. But they're nowhere near there now. And to be honest, you don't really. It's hard to break into that threshold unless maybe you win a national title or maybe you win at least one college football playoff game and be in the mix. I think at least 3 years in a row for you to really step into that next echelon of programs. And then also, if that's not happening, then you at least have to find a way to, you know, use his NIL explosion. And I agree with Antoine. You know, and look, I do believe that it's going to implode. I do believe that it's going to. You will see some kind of regulation at some point. I mean, it's getting a little bit ridiculous. You have 4-star kids getting offered, $9.5 million, uh, and haven't proven a darn thing. Like there will be some kind of regulation at some point. But as of now, yeah, I mean, there isn't. You need to find a way to kind of break through, and that's what Texas A&M is trying to do. They haven't had the on field success necessarily to uh, get ahead of the Alabamas and the other programs out there, so they're trying another avenue in terms of using their money or connections for money and trying to leverage your way into that conversation. So it's going to be really tough for Michigan to get to that point, but that doesn't mean that we let them off the hook for not exploring everything they can explore.